Hey guys, if this is your first time to my channel, hello and welcome. My name is Emily and it is Saturday, so yes, we are doing another spooky Saturday. So today's spooky Saturday is almost like a true crime case, if you will, but there's definitely some spooky aspects about it because no one knows what the heck this phenomenon is. We are going to be talking all about the feet and the shoes that have been washing up on the shore in British Columbia and Washington. I don't know if you guys know about this case already, but I heard about this a couple years ago. Apparently, a bunch of feet have just been washing up on this specific shoreline, and people have some questions about it. So these events take place in the Salish Sea, which is right in the middle of Washington and British Columbia, Canada. If you are not already aware, I am from Washington and I currently live in Washington, so this kind of hits home for me. But ever since 2007, feet in running shoes have been washing up on the shoreline of the Salish Sea, mostly in British Columbia, but there have been a couple in the Seattle, kind of Tacoma, Washington area as well. They have found 18 different feet that have all washed up in the same exact area that are all in running shoes. I believe only 2 of the cases have been in some worker boots, but the majority of the cases of the feet being on the beach have been in running shoes. Some of the feet that have washed up have also been mates to a previous foot that has been washed up. So if it was from a dead body, one of the feet will wash up, and then eventually with some of these cases the other foot will wash up as well, but I believe it's only been 2 of these cases, so the rest of them have just been random feet. Out of all these cases of these random shoes and feet washing up on this shoreline, only 8 of them have been identified. Most of these feet have also been right feet. I think only 2 of them have been left feet. The most recent case of a foot washing up in this kind of shoreline area was on December 8th of 2017, and it washed up on the British Columbia side of the Salish Sea, and that's not that long ago. It was just a couple months ago that we were all doing Christmas festivities or holiday festivities or whatever you do in December. That was not that long ago. It literally feels like yesterday for me. And while we were doing all of these holiday themed things, making cookies, wrapping presents, getting in the mood for things, someone's foot was washing up onto a beach, and some poor soul had to walk by and witness this while the rest of us were out doing our holiday festivities. Something else that's strange with this case as well is that most of these feet have all washed up within like a couple weeks of each other, and then it'll kind of die down for a little bit and there'll be no activity going on, and then a couple other feet will wash up. They come in waves, no pun intended. Let's go ahead and get into some possible theories that most people and some authorities believe. So the first theory is that some of these feet might have been washed up from the 2004 tsunami that happened in Asia. I think it was off the coast of Japan, and maybe they're just resurfacing from 2007 to present day. I don't know why it would take that long, but it is a pretty long distance from where we personally are on the upper left corner of the US to Japan. So maybe it does take a really long time for things to kind of float and move onwards towards our direction. I don't know. That's why this is a theory. Another theory is that this is a possible dumping ground for organized crime. Maybe these people who are involved in drugs or sex trafficking or just organized crime in general are killing people and dumping the bodies in this specific area. Maybe it's like a well-known thing to dump bodies here. I don't know. It seems kind of weird to me, but not as weird as this next theory, which is that some people really think that there's a serial killer who is targeting runners and dumping the bodies in this area. I really highly doubt that one, but I mean, anything's possible. Like I always say with Spooky Saturdays, I do not rule out anything until the case is solved, because if it's not solved yet, then the possibilities are literally endless. Another popular theory is that there was actually a plane crash that really happened that crashed near the Quadra Island, which I guess is kind of by the shoreline where these feet keep washing up. And there was 5 people in that plane accident, so maybe that could attribute to some of these feet that are being washed up. Definitely not all of them, because keep in mind there was like 18 of them, but it could definitely attribute to some of them. But they actually found one of the bodies, and they have been doing some DNA testing, which is how they've been able to actually identify who some of these feet belong to. None of the feet that they have tested, which I believe is all of them, have matched up to any of the DNA of the people who were in the plane crash, but 4 of them are still missing in that area. And the last theory is that possibly people are committing suicide, and this theory is the most believed and backed up by the authorities. I believe 5 out of the 8 people that they have identified out of the whole group of the feet that have been washing up have been suicide victims that have jumped from a nearby bridge area. So as far as the authorities go, they do not believe that foul play is involved basically at all in this situation. They think that it's definitely a natural thing that's happening, and they don't really think that foul play is involved, but they haven't completely ruled it out yet. So the authorities think that this is a natural thing that has been happening, and that is because apparently the wrists and the ankles are 2 of the most weakest points of the body, and I guess when you decompose, especially in water, when fish might be nipping at you and whatnot, which sounds disgusting and morbid, but that's what happens. I guess that your feet can fall off really easily, as well as your hands, just from decomposing. And that is actually called disarticulation, which is something that the authorities seem to be throwing out a lot in this specific instance. So through DNA testing, they were actually able to find that one of the oldest bodies that have washed up, or one of the oldest feet, I should say, because it's not a whole body, was actually a foot that dates back to a missing persons case from 1987, and they found that foot in 2011. It just washed up onto the shore, and they were actually able to track it back to a fisherman whose boat tipped over, and that's why he was actually missing. They didn't realize his boat tipped over until they found the foot, and then they put 2 and 2 together and realized what happened to him. So it's a very sad case, but at least they were able to identify him and give his family some closure to something that happened a long time ago. And it's freaking crazy that a foot in a shoe can float along a sea for that long of a time period. Some more explanations on why this might be happening, and this is more widely believed by just authorities. Civilians hear this and think that it kind of just sounds like a conspiracy, but mostly the authorities believe that this might be why these feet are resurfacing. And one of the reasons is because running shoes are very lightweight. They're made out of a specific type of material that has a lot of buoyancy, meaning that it can float. If you were to put it in water, your shoe would most likely float and drift off. So they put 2 and 2 together and basically chalked it up to the fact that these people are wearing running shoes and that the running shoes are floating along the surface of the water, and because they are made of the material that's very buoyant, they're able to float a long distance and be able to remain above the water and not sink down pretty easily. Another idea that the authorities are kind of going off of is that these shoes are pretty hard for fish to chew through. Now, a lot of these shoes haven't really had bite marks on them from fish, and there have been some boots that have washed up, so that would be kind of hard for a fish to chew through as well. They have also noted that most running shoes are typically a bright color. They're typically white, or they're a pastel shade, or they're an orange shade, and maybe more feet are actually washing up onto the shores, or more body parts and whatnot, but we're just not noticing it, or it gets dragged away easily without us noticing it because they're not brightly colored like these running shoes are. Now, that doesn't really come into play when it comes to the work boots that were found. I believe there was 2 of them that were found, but I mean, it could have been a special scenario for those. And the last idea that these authorities have for why this might be happening is the suicide theory again. There is a river that's kind of nearby called the Fraser River, which has a bridge over it, and they have identified that some of these victims through DNA testing and whatnot are some of the suicide victims that have jumped over this bridge. So I believe that these authorities mainly think that these feet that are washing up are from suicide victims that have just jumped kind of close to the area and just end up washing up onto shore. So very sad, but that's what the authorities think might be causing all of this. Now, this still raises a lot of questions. Now, people who are into conspiracy theories like me and people who think that there's more going on have some pretty valid questions, like, why are feet only washing up here? Why is it happening in such a short amount of time? Why is it coming in bursts and then it'll stop for a while? And keep in mind, things can wash up anywhere on a beach. All over the world, we have had instances where a shoe with a foot in it will wash up onto a beach, but it'll be like 1 every 10 years or so. It's not 18 in a very short time span. So that's what's really raising a lot of questions with this case. I mean, it can happen, but the probability of a bunch of feet washing up on this specific kind of beach area is very low, and the fact that it keeps happening is very strange. The fact that it's only this one specific type of shoe is also very strange as well, although there are those theories about it being very light and buoyant and whatnot, but that doesn't necessarily explain why everything is happening this way. The last question that people raise raise is where the heck are the bodies? Now, I understand that these feet and these shoes are basically washing up because the feet break off first when you're decomposing, but so do your hands, so do your fingers, so do a lot of parts of the body. And you think that if they're close enough for these shoes to wash up onto shore, you would get some other type of evidence that the body was around. At least in one of these cases, I mean, there's 18 of them. You think that there would be one case where a little bit more of the body was found, but that has not happened. It's literally just these shoes, and there's a lot of strange circumstances that go into this because the body should eventually wash up. If it's nearby, if it's in this little sea, which isn't very big, it's not a giant sea. It's just in between Canada and Washington. You think that the rest of the body would eventually show itself, but it hasn't in any of these cases. And so that still leaves a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of confusion with what's going on with this case. But that is going to be wrapping up this week's Spooky Saturday. What do you think? Do you think that these feet are just washing up out of nowhere, or do you think that there's something a little more sinister and a little more crazy behind it? Because personally, I think that there's definitely more to the story. And I don't really know if we'll ever find it, but feet seem to be still washing up, so I guess check back in a year and we'll see how far this case has developed since then. I do hope that you consider subscribing. I am doing a Spooky Saturday every single Saturday, and during the week I have all sorts of makeup videos, so if you are into spooky, creepy things and makeup, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. I hope you are having an absolutely amazing day wherever you are, and thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time. Bye!